8th Eclipse OpenJ9 community call. As always, please add your name and affiliation to the list of people attending, just so we have some idea of who's regularly been attending these calls. And before we dive into the agenda, I'll pause for a minute. If there's something you want to add to the... Actually, before I do that, I'm going to actually share my screen. Probably help a whole lot. Can everyone see the agenda? Or anyone see the agenda?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, good, thank you. So now that we've got the agenda pulled up, if there's something you want to add to that, speak up now or take it into any other business sections as well. Pause if there's something people want to jump on right now. No lightning talks scheduled for this week, though we do have 2 that we'll be tentatively looking at in February or early March. Just seeing if Babneet is on the call. I don't see him. So I'll have to, and I don't see Eric either, so we'll have to follow up on when in February they'd like to do the native stacks and the Java core one. If there is one you'd like to give, please reach out to me. We'll get something scheduled. Let's take a look at the recent end user issues. And I think there's probably only one of these that's come in since the last community call, and that's the DTFJ related issue. Keith, is this something that you could take a look at or help with?
Yeah, I'm going to be getting to that one shortly.
Thank you. Is there anything else in this list that we need to discuss or take a look at? Then we'll jump back to the agenda. And this brings us to the 0.30 release, which I believe is complete. Adam, can you confirm that the builds are complete and posted?
Yes.
Excellent.
However, 11.014.1 was released today by OpenJDK.
Right, so it sounds like we need a respin there as well, assuming that this affects OpenJ9.
Common OpenJDK code related to the HTTP client, so I don't see why it wouldn't affect OpenJ9. There was a second fix related to Solaris. I didn't look at the code, but I'm assuming that one doesn't affect OpenJ9.
And so I see you're asking whether we should include the Mac system core fix.
Yeah, if we're going to do a respin, it makes sense to me to create a 0.30.1 and just put in the Mac fix for the core file creation.
So we would be respinning 11 on all platforms anyways, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, if we're doing that, then I don't see why we wouldn't fix, if we have the fix in hand for the Mac system core issue and it's low risk. Assuming both those assumptions are correct, then I don't see why we wouldn't. Anyone disagree with that or think that we should hold off including the Mac fix?
No, I would agree. It's safe to include.
So then I guess we'll need a respin the OpenJ9.
So a slight hiccup is that our import job didn't put the new release into the staging branch. So I think Jason's looking at that. Hopefully we'll get that fixed soon, get it into staging, get it through some builds, and be able to create the release.
And you'll handle the milestone plan and whatnot for the 0.30.1 release?
Yeah, I guess I can create one.
I'm assuming we want one just from a ease of having something to point back to and why we did it.
Yeah, makes sense. It will be empty because the MacFix is in OMR. But it could. I'll make an Eclipse plan for 0.30.1 and the milestone could point to the Eclipse plan.
Okay. Or even just an issue that points at whatever the fix that we ended up putting in was, so that we have some idea. More importantly, people tracking the project have some idea of why we did this.
Right. So there'll be the release page on GitHub that details the changes between 0.30 and 0.30.1.
Yeah, okay, so a release page should be sufficient. If the milestone's going to be empty, I don't see the point in creating it. Anything else to tackle around that? I guess the other question would be the dates. When do we expect to be able to get that out by?
From an OpenJ9 perspective,
Yes.
tomorrow or the next day. From a Semru build perspective, I'm not sure.
Do we need
Possibly
all
this
the
week. Probably not. The fix is very specific, and I suspect it's in a piece of code that's not tested by most of the test suites.
Yeah, we can shoot for this week.
All right, anything else around that release? I guess that brings us to Java 18, the 0.31 release.
So I
Need to
updated
see
the list. Yep.
with 3 blockers. Seem to be going in the wrong direction with blockers at this point.
Yeah, there seems to be a regression where we're crashing in some GC, in the GC, in some disclaimed memory tests, and it looking like a regression that was introduced at some point. So we're trying to track that down. We used to have 2 JIT blockers, but I think one of them was closed as a dupe of the other. And there's a test that's crashing on Mac. Now, it may be a new test or an unexcluded test. Seems to be passing on all the other platforms, but crashing on Mac, so we're investigating that.
With the last week we had said we were waiting for a fix for this one to do the M1 build with the JIT crash.
That one is still, so the PR was created last week, but we've had troubles getting the PR testing to go with that. So we do require, because that change touches a fair number of the technologies that we have, the JIT, the AOT code, JIT server, we have to make sure that we test in all those configurations, and we've had some trouble getting the AOT testing to run. We were able to get we were able to run them successfully on Sunday, and there were a number of failures that we started going through. Most of them are known issues already, so not introduced by the PR. but there was a set on x86 that we weren't sure about. So Devin was trying to recreate those yesterday, and I know he launched builds, and I see that there's failures today. So I think he's still going through to see if those are issues introduced by this PR or if they're already known ones. So we're close on that one. The reviews are done. We just have to make sure that the testing looks good.
We do run AO testing regularly, twice a week, and those builds are green. We don't run all the test suites, but we do run Sanity Functional.
Okay.
So you could look for test build AOT.
Yeah, the other The other challenge that he had was there were no failure artifacts to kind of sink our teeth into. So by the time we went to retrieve them, they were already reclaimed. So he ran yesterday to at least get core files so that we could look into what the problem might be.
Okay. Yeah, we're running Sanity Functional, Extended Functional, all the Linux or all PX and Z Linux and Windows.
Okay. I did discover as part of this process that we're not running AART64 and AOT. Probably have to create some modifications to the testing jobs to add that. I can look into that at some point.
I'll just do it right now. It'll take
Okay, cool.
5 seconds.
Oh, perfect.
Assuming it's all set up to run, I think it is.
I think it's just a matter of creating a configuration for that.
I see. Yeah, it's in the list, so it should be running, but it's not. So it's not set up properly. Yeah, so it's harder than I thought.
Okay. Back to me?
Okay. Sure. It's probably something in the default YML.
Yeah, I'll look into that. Yeah, we can take that offline. We don't have to talk about it here.
So on that basis, we're at 22 issues, and we were moving towards an M2 on February 21st, but we haven't done the M1 yet. Do we want to continue holding off on the M1 at this point? Are we going to do a single milestone build?
The concern I have is that if we try to run Sanity OpenJDK tests, we get some random number of crashes because of the JIT problem that isn't resolved yet. So
I think it should wait until that gets merged because it's just going to waste people's time if they're investigating problems that one would have fixed. Hopefully we can get that one in. You know, if we have something to sink our teeth into today, maybe today we can merge that. If not, hopefully in the next day, something like that.
So we're thinking this week, at least, to get that merged.
Mm-hmm.
And this GC problem, so we completely puzzled from the moment. We narrowed down to the build, plus minus where it started happened. And nothing really in GC was changed at that time. And if some G changes, so we kind of very confused. I cannot explain how any G change can cause this at the moment. So we are still investigating this.
Can you post a list of those changes in the JIT, maybe in the issue that you're looking at?
Yes, probably. Lean's supposed to fix it, but I just looked through, and most of the changes for ARM and for OS X, it's something related to changes from January 25th, 26th. because
Mm.
first really we observe and fail and start January 27.
Okay, yeah, the ARM changes should be pretty much isolated to ARM, so yeah.
Yeah, so it's not 26 probably because so few changes really at all. Maybe 25th it was quite large change, but again, like we are trying to narrow down.
And for the VM blocker, we'll be on the call.
Yeah, so for the VM blocker, there's an issue where the test launches a new process, a process builder, and it crashes. We're still trying to determine what is happening there, but we believe this is new. This is a new test, or it's not a new test, but it's a test we recently enabled, and so this is likely a problem we've had for some time. It's specific to Mac OS, so it's not across the board. But until we do further investigation, we're not going to know exactly what the issue there is.
The last I heard from Bapneet was he was trying to run it under the debugger. He tried it on his own machine, but the debugger hung trying to output a stack trace. Adam had enabled the debugger on a lab machine, and Bapneet was trying there, but I haven't heard anything further.
Okay.
I set it as a blocker because it's failing in every build, but as per some other tests that aren't necessarily regressions, if we decided to exclude it, then the blocker label could be removed.
Good to understand or confirm that it is actually present in previous releases.
Yep.
Make it much easier to say that it's not a blocker. So that's the three that we have labeled as blockers. There's another 19 issues in this plan.
I wonder if we could move out some of these JEPs.
Wondering how far we are from being able to close them out. I see Vector API, we've got 3 copies of the incubator in here.
Yeah, we've been carrying forward from previous releases.
Are they complete for this release?
I think it depends on, like, they're functional, so we're not missing any capabilities for all of them. Complete depends on your definition from a performance perspective. So I know Gita has targets for each release, and so perhaps maybe that should determine whether they're complete or not.
I'm just, I'm looking at this. We have 3 JEPs for the Vector API, a JDK 16, 17, and 18 JEP. Are the 16 and 17 ones still relevant given the, we have a JDK 18 one?
Yeah, it makes sense to me to close the old ones, but I don't know what they're tracking. If somebody might be finding them useful.
It's probably worth the conversation with Gita. Similar with a foreign memory and access API, I see we've got a second incubator and a third incubator that we're moving forward here as well.
Yeah, for those ones, I think we should close the older incubators and just keep the most recent one for tracking purposes. The API has already been updated to to the most recent one, so I don't think there's any need to keep the older ones around.
What about some of these other JEPs like the UTF-8 by default? Did that work?
I think for that one, there is one test that we need to update. I don't think that item is in the milestone plan.
For the UTF-8 by default, and currently really there's no outstanding item need actively working on, but I'm investigating a test failure that's actually in this screen now. That's the JDK 18 Common Line Test System Property Test Failure in AIX and Windows. And the test apparently make a wrong assumption about the default encoding. So that's why currently this test failure is assigned to the component test. And the reason I'm not included this for the JDK 18 yet, because I'm using it as a placeholder to investigate actually what this test running. I'm trying to understand an assumption wrong, but it's doing actually our code doing something supposed to do. I'm still tracing down to some internal different coding switch, because we internally we always use modified UTF-8, and between the input, particularly common line parameter input, like if we have non-ASCII common line option there, so I'm not. I still need a little bit time to determine like our code doing correctly, and so that's the only thing I'm aware for this JEP.
Okay, but we have that issue in the milestone plan. I think we should just go ahead and close the JEP as completed, because all the JEP work is complete. Just because we have
against that.
Sorry, say again?
I'm fine with it to close the JEP itself.
Yep, good.
What about the re-implement core reflection and method handles?
So this is similar to the JEP 400. There are some issues we have that may be related to it. However, since we are tracking those issues, then to be consistent, we can close that one as well.
And are the issues we're tracking in this plan already or not?
Yeah, so the JDK 18 as records test and the splitterator test, I believe, are the two that may be related.
All right, then if everybody who spoke up around those JEPs can take action on those, that'll give us a more accurate view of where we are with this release plan.
Yeah, I'll close those.
Thanks, Toby. And if someone can follow up with Gita as well.
Yep.
For the 032 milestone, we have one blocker there as well that we had agreed to keep as a blocker because it fails so much in the nightly builds. Has somebody been looking at that as well?
No, we haven't made any progress on that one. Sorry, just a lack of time.
Do we actually expect that to be, for there to be time before the release for JDK 18?
Hard to say. Might have some cycles next week that can be devoted to this.
Right, we will keep tracking it here. Is there anything else we want to touch on for the JDK 18 release? Then I know we are rapidly running up on our time limit. Just want to ask then about the 032 release, the next quarterly release, where we were intending to branch later this month. Has a pass been taken over this milestone to get us into shape for that release?
I know Jason has closed some. I haven't done my pass yet, and these stats aren't updated.
So we're at 136 items here. Slightly concerning that we're getting very quickly to our branch date there. If you do have extra cycles after the Java 18 issues are addressed, please jump on those 032 issues and let's see what we can do to burn down that plan as well.
Well, keeping in mind that a lot of these things have just been moved forward. We'll be shipping 032 kind of in the same shape as we've shipped previous releases.
Yeah, I think we need to be, as we said last week, closing these items if we're not going to get to them. Shelley, is there an update on the adopt?
I don't think there's anything new here, really. I think we're finally closed off delivering all the platforms from January release, but see that we'll now have to potentially run that respin for the .1 patch release.
Adam indicated in the chat that he had to drop, but there's no update on infrastructure. Devin, anything to call out for CMake?
No, nothing of real note there.
Marius, anything to call out for JIT server? Actually, I don't see Marius on the call, so. Next MicroJIT meeting is coming up this week. There'll be anything to call out for Snapshot Restorer?
Nothing new this week.
Jack on the call. Yeah, Jack, anything for Loom?
Nothing special this week.
Have we continued to make progress on adopting OpenJDK thread class?
I believe Jason had been working on that, and he was successful in getting the thread to run on sanity functional tests.
I think it's still under review, right? I don't think it got merged yet.
No, I've been reviewing it kind of during this meeting. I think we're close.
Be good. Cheng, is there an update on Panama?
Not much. Keep working on code change, specific to the memory segment in terms of structure support.
And Daryl, anything you want to call out for the Mac M1 work?
We're still fixing issues, and I think we're in pretty good shape for an early access release for JDK 18.
Good to hear. Anything else we need to cover today? All right, then thank you, everybody, and we'll pick this up again on February the 15th.
Thank you.